All right, everyone, buckle up because today we're diving deep into the heart of AI, something you've probably heard a ton about lately, transformers.
We're talking way more than meets the eye here. Not just what they are, but why everyone's freaking out about them.
Okay, so no giant robots then. Kidding. But seriously, what is a transformer in this context?
Think of it like this. It's a type of neural network architecture, basically the blueprint for how we organize artificial neurons in AI. So instead of programming a computer with rigid rules, it's more like how our own brains make connections, you know?
So we're talking about designing the brain of an AI, but in a way that's closer to how we think.
You got it. Older neural networks, they process data like a line of dominoes, one thing at a time. But then came along this 2017 research paper that changed everything. Attention is all you need. That was the title. Really shook things up.
Attention is all you need. Sounds kind of demanding, doesn't it? What was so groundbreaking about it?
Well, think about how you understand what I'm saying right now. You're not analyzing each word individually, are you? You just grasp the whole meaning instantly because your brain's making connections between all the words at once.
It's like speed reading for our brains.
Exactly. And that's what transformers, with their attention mechanisms, allow AI to do. They process information relationally, grasp in the context and the relationships within data, all at the same time.
So instead of plodding through data step by step, transformers can see the big picture all at once, kind of like our brains.
You're getting it. This whole attention thing was a major breakthrough, made AI way more efficient, especially when it comes to understanding and generating human-like text.
Now that is fascinating. It's almost like giving AI the ability to think more like we do.
And here's where it gets really wild. It's not just about language. This ability to understand relationships in data. It's changing the game in all kinds of fields.
Okay, now you have to tell me more. What else can these transformers do?
Well, I'm sure you've heard of ChatGPT. It's like the rock star of AI right now.
Who hasn't?
At the heart of it is GPT, which stands for Generative Pre-trained Transformer. It uses the same architecture we're talking about, but it's been trained on massive, and I have massive data sets of text and code.
So that's how it spits out such human-like text, but you're saying this is just the tip of the iceberg.
Oh yeah, barely scratched the surface. Take computer vision, for example. Imagine an AI that instead of just seeing separate objects in an image, it actually understands the relationships between them. Like a cat sitting on a mat next to a ball of yarn. That's where vision transformers, or VITs, come in.
So it's not just seeing a cat, a mat, and some yarn. It understands the whole scene.
Exactly. And this goes way beyond just still images, too. We're talking analyzing videos, predicting movements, even creating completely new visuals.
Wow, this technology is way more versatile than I realized, from writing poems to understanding images. It's like something straight out of science fiction.
And that's barely scratching the surface. We're talking music generation, understanding complex protein structures in biology, even game-playing AIs. It's mind-blowing, really.
Okay, gotta admit, my mind is kind of blown right now. So we've got these transformers processing data in this crazy smart way. But how do they actually learn to do all that? You mentioned training them on massive data sets earlier.
It's like, imagine teaching a kid to ride a bike. At first, they're wobbly, they fall off, got to hold on tight. But every time they try, they're adjusting, figuring out the balance, right?
Yeah, and eventually they're off on their own. No training wheels needed.
That's the idea. We feed these transformers tons of data. Text, code, images, you name it. And the model learns by trying to predict what comes next, like guessing the ending to a story. Every right answer kind of reinforces those connections in its network.
So if you showed it like a million pictures of birds, it would start to understand what makes a bird, and maybe even start predicting what a new type of bird might look like.
Spot on. And each time it makes a prediction, whether it's right or wrong, it learns from it. It's called backpropagation. Basically, the model gets feedback on its guesses and fine-tunes itself to get better and better.
It's like AI boot camp. The more it trains, the smarter it gets. But you're talking about a lot of data here. Doesn't that take a ton of computing power to handle?
That's one of the big challenges for sure. Training a large transformer model can take massive computational resources, not to mention the energy consumption.
So it's not as easy as hitting download and letting it run on your laptop overnight.
Not quite. Think more like data centers full of specialized hardware, crunching data for days, sometimes even weeks at a time.
Wow, that's intense. It seems like there's a trade-off then, right? The more powerful the AI, the more resources it takes to create it. Are researchers doing anything to address that?
Oh, absolutely. It's like, remember how the first cars were these gas guzzlers compared to what we drive now?
And don't even get me started on trying to parallel park those things. Haha.
Exactly. We've come a long way in making cars more efficient. And in AI, it's the same thing. We're seeing more efficient transformer models pop up, like reformer models and longformer models.
So we're getting more bang for our buck, so to speak. More brain power with less energy.
That's the goal. These newer models use some pretty clever techniques to process information more efficiently. Like, instead of analyzing every single word in a massive data set, they might focus on key phrases or relationships, which saves a lot of computing power.
That's pretty slick. So it sounds like AI is constantly evolving then, becoming more powerful and more efficient at the same time.
It never stops. And one of the most exciting areas of this evolution is something called multimodality.
Okay, now that one has me intrigued. Multimodality sounds like something out of a superhero comic. What is that exactly?
Think about how we experience the world, right? It's not just through text or just images or sounds by themselves. It's all of those things working together.
That's how we get the full picture, yeah.
Right. So for AI to really understand the world like we do, it needs to be able to process and combine information from lots of different sources at the same time, just like our brains do naturally.
So instead of having one AI that's great at language and another one that's good with images, we could have a single model that understands both and more.
That's the idea behind multimodal transformers. Like, imagine feeding a model a news article that has text, pictures, even audio clips all mixed in. It could then have a way richer understanding of what's going on compared to something that only sees the text.
Wow, that's incredible. What kind of impact did that have on, say, our everyday lives?
The possibilities are pretty much endless. Imagine AI that can sense how you're feeling while you're watching a movie and adjust the soundtrack to match. Or one that can help you design your dream home by understanding your sketches, your Pinterest boards, and your descriptions all at once.
Okay, that is a smart home I can get behind.
Right. We're talking about AI that interacts with us on a whole new level.
Yeah.
It's not just understanding our words, but the emotions and intentions behind them. We're talking about bridging that gap between human and artificial intelligence.
An AI that can actually get us, that's, I don't know, incredible and a little spooky all at the same time. It's like we're living in a sci-fi movie.
Yeah, I get what you mean. It's exciting and a little daunting. Kind of reminds me of when touchscreens first came out, you know?
Mm-hmm.
We went from these clunky buttons to this whole other level of interacting with tech. Multimodal AI, it could be just as big.
Definitely a game changer. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here, from the ABCs of Transformers to AI that can practically read our minds. But for anyone listening who's thinking, okay, why should I care? What would you say?
It's a good question. See, understanding Transformers, it's not just about some techie concept. It's about this whole shift in how we're building intelligence itself. Like that line between science fiction and reality. It's getting blurry fast.
We're on the edge of something huge here, aren't we?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And the more we get how this all works, the better prepared we are for this whole new world.
It's about being in the driver's seat, right? Not just along for the ride.
Exactly. It's about asking the questions, having these conversations, and thinking critically about what these powerful tools can do, for better or worse.
So where do we even go from here? What can our listeners do to get more involved?
Stay curious. Seriously, that's number one. Read up on it, listen to podcasts like this one, follow the experts. The more you know, the better equipped you are.
Knowledge is power, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And don't be afraid to ask those questions like you were just saying. When you see some new AI thing, think about how it ticks, what data it's using, what impact it could have.
With great power and all that.
That's it. And finally, use your voice. Talk to people about this stuff, share what you're learning, debate it out, be part of the conversation. The more we talk about it, the better we'll be able to handle whatever's coming, good or bad.
That's a great point to end on. Well, on that note of endless possibility and, actually shaping the future, I think we've reached the end of our deep dive into the world of Transformers. What a journey.
It's been a pleasure exploring this with you.
And to all our amazing listeners, thank you for diving deep with us. We hope you've come away with a new understanding of how powerful and important these AI models are. Remember, the future of AI, it's not just happening to us, it's something we're all creating together. Until next time, stay curious, everyone.